Welcome to Charts This Week. My name's David Linton. I run Updater, and this week's edition for Monday, the 21st of March, comes to you from London. And we start, as always, by looking at crude oil. And one thing I want to just bring your attention to is on the Updater website, under the research section in Partner Research. Brent Berarducci of Blackline Capital shows how he uses the energy feed for his fundamentals report on oil and on NatGas, and really powerful. And the great thing is that Brent's made his screens available in Updater. In fact, all of these screens are available to you. You just simply go into the library under desktop, and if you look at an Updater feed, these are all the screens that I'm using here today. And then the oil fundamental report is there as well. And of course, if you're using Reuters, Thomson Reuters Icon, or Bloomberg, you can simply go and grab the screen. So this crude oil screen is a Reuters Thomson Reuters Icon screen. So it's just taking that data from Thomson Reuters Icon. So here, the great thing about Updater is, of course, it's running on top of that Thomson Reuters Icon system. So here is your Thomson Reuters Icon, and you just type in all the same codes in your Updater system as you would in Thomson Reuters Icon, and it's pulling these charts from Icon. And when we get to OTC, you can pull that data from Trayport, and you can mix and match these data sources. So a really powerful aspect. So if you're using Thomson Reuters Icon, this adds an extra dimension in terms of charting power, and then the ability to bring your OTC prices in as well. So we start by looking at crude. Here we see Brent crude is on this upward trend. We're not greatly surprised by that, of course. This comes down to the seasonality. We said this is a strong time of year, and if we look at the seasonality, we see here that this is the time of year where we expect crude to go up based on the last 10 years. This function in Updater is really straightforward. You just take it from your charts, drop down here, seasonality, and this is a 10-year weighted seasonality detrended, and again it's in that charts charts layout that you take from Updater. So you can literally just take this same layout, have this same screen running, so you can just follow me and set yourself up for the week. And so here we see that Brent is potentially running out of steam quite soon, and then we go into the second half of the year where crude prices tend to fall. So we're seeing a rise at the moment, and if we look at the cloud, we are just testing right on the lagging line on the cloud at the moment. Last year we did actually make it through for a while, so it does follow that we make it through for a while, but then we may well do that as well. We don't have much work to do, let's face it. We can just wander out of this cloud now, but if we fall back into the low 30s over the next few weeks, then the cloud resistance will have had its effect. But in a downtrend, remember, sideways moves or short-lived up moves and then long moves down. So we shouldn't get too excited about crude in the medium to long term. And in fact, if we want to just look at that on your Updater system, hold the Shift key down, press T, and it will give you the trends and targets. If we can break higher, we will have an upside target to 62, but this has got a lot of resistance to break through. That's what we call a counter trend target. Of course, if we want to find where the nearer side targets are, we look at the shorter term chart. This is the 60-minute chart. Again, all this data coming from Thomson Reuters Icon. This is the 60-minute chart on your Updater system. It's above the cloud at the moment, so that's positive. On your Updater system, Shift T, and we do at the moment have a downside target of 39.20, so that's another 4.5% downside from where we are now. So whilst it looks bullish at the moment that we might go on through that cloud, we do have that short-term target, just reminding us. And if we look at WTI, and again, we're above the cloud here, so that's bullish, but we are testing at the moment. Shift T, if we make new lows this week, 34 is the target there, that's 12% downside from here. So really do need to keep an eye on that. And of course, if you're trading crude shorter term, or you're watching it very closely short term, again, data from Thomson Reuters Icon, the 1-minute charts, really powerful. Shift T, and here you see downside targets. So this is the 1-minute charts, very much for what's going to happen today. And if you're trading any products, these charts are just amazing. So we do have downside targets. Looks like we might breach back below that $40 level. Keep an eye on the 1 minute charts for any new side targets. So that's our look at crude. NatGas has looked pretty bearish in the long term and the medium term. We see here that we're still below the cloud on NatGas. So but we are seeing here the seasonality is quite strong at this time of year, and we do see here that we are just starting to pull through. We're still below the cloud though, so it's pretty bearish, but at the moment we might see some strength, and that is showing up in the shorter term chart. Here we see the daily chart, and then the 60-minute chart we see here. This, since we crossed on about the 7th of March, we've been in this upward trend on the cloud. When this trend is over, we'll see it first on this chart, on the 60-minute chart. Shift T again gives you the trends and targets. An upside target to 218 if we can break above that 195 level, and we do have a little upside target here of 193. And of course, again, if you're trading NatGas short term, here's the 1 minute chart, Shift T on this chart, and we do have these downside targets of 184, 186 hanging over us, but some upside potential there. So that's quite key as well. If we look at European gas, these prices all OTC, consolidated broker data. This is on the Updater Energy feed, the same places where you'll find those US fundamental data sets that Brent's been using in his charts each week. But here we see OTC prices falling quite heavily this morning. Of course, this can be running on your Trayport screen or your Updater screen, real-time consolidated broker feed. So here we see we're teetering along the bottom. The correlation at the moment with the with crude is pretty neutral. So crude not having a great impact right now on NBP prices. If we look at the 60-minute chart, big fall this morning, takes us really back below the cloud. We are just holding it on the lagging line. Shift T will give us the trends and targets. Downside targets 27.75, 26.25, and upside targets to around the 30 level. So it is showing us that gas could go either way. We'd probably favour the downside with that move below the cloud. If you're trading NBP very short term, the 1 minute charts are really where you need to go. And again, if we make new lows, then 26.65, 26.25, there's downward pressure at the moment, so we're not expecting NBP to have a great week. If we look at TTF high cal, this is front month again. This is the daily chart. We're below the cloud here, so we've just been bearish really for the last several months. Quite a bearish picture. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, we see we're very range bound at the moment in around this 12 euro area. So Shift T on your chart, again, downside targets here 1143, 1095, and less upside potential, so still looking pretty bearish for TTF. Remember, the 1 minute charts will give you the even closer targets. So here we see also NCG and Gaspool pulling below, so not a great start to the week for European gas prices. If we look at German power, again, this could be coming off your Trayport screen, consolidated broker data. So this is where you compare that. And in fact, one of the great things here, if we go just back to the gas price, is this correlation with crude. The crude price is coming from Thomson Reuters Icon, and the gas price is coming either from Trayport or the Updater Energy feed. And so we're able to cross-compare those data sets. It's great for when you want to look at sparks and darks and the spreads. So really powerful there. If we take a look at German power, we see here we're below the cloud on the daily. German power is trying to recover, but it has been bearish for a very, very long time, trying to recover, but is not yet anywhere near getting through that daily cloud. If we look at the 60-minute chart, Shift T will give you the trends and targets. We do have an upside target, 22.65, 22.90, so it does suggest that there is more upside potential at the moment. And then if you're trading German power really closely, the 1 minute chart, hold the shift key, press T, and there are all your trends and targets. And at the moment, it's looking okay for German power. So looking a little bit bullish this week, so quite different to gas. UK power below the cloud on the daily and the 60-minute. Nordic power falling back quite heavily this morning, down a couple of percent on the quarterly contract, but still holding up on the 60-minute chart. Shift T, trends and targets, and again, if you're trading Nordic power, go right to the 1 minute chart. This data either coming off your Thomson Reuters icon, or you can run on Montel. It doesn't really matter where you're taking the feed from. You can actually use that feed into Updata. If we take a look at at Forex, dollar had a very bad week last week. Fell away very heavily on Yellen statements. But we are below the cloud on the daily. But we are really range bound here between the mid 90s and about 101. So in this long range, the big move into the pattern. Don't be surprised still if we see a big move to the upside out of the pattern. That's what normally happens in trends. Too early to call a reversal yet. If we look at the 60-minute chart, this is .dxy on your Thomson Reuters icon. Shift T again, and we do see now quite a lot of downside. Recovering a little bit this morning, that's what these crosses are, but downside potential around 3%, and that would start to drag us out. So Euro is starting to look a little bit more bullish against the dollar. If we look here, again, really stuck in this range. We fell very heavily in 2014. 2015, we've been going sideways, really stuck in this 105, 115 range. So still quite difficult to call. Shift T just gives you the trends and targets. And we see here we still do have downward pressure on the euro. So these are medium term. If we make new lows, then that would be bad. We just have to wait for the break. On the shorter term basis, we see that we are above the cloud on the 60-minute chart. Shift T, and this is quite encouraging for the euro, targets to 114, 118, 117, 118. So at the moment, that looks like we might break out of that 115 to the upside. Long term still looks bearish, medium term looks pretty bullish, and short term looks very bullish. So it's really marrying those time frames together. Of course, if you're trading FX, here's the 1 minute chart, again off Thomson Reuters icon. It's euro equals on Thomson Reuters icon, EUR equals, and if you just adjust these box sizes down here, these give you the targets. So really quite powerful there as well. If we take a look at sterling, had a quite strong week last week. Dollar weakness there fed through. Sterling bouncing back off those lows that we saw a couple of weeks ago. On the 60-minute chart, we see here sterling is above the cloud, so that is relatively bullish. Shift T, 146.40 is the upside target at the moment. That's 1.5% upside from here. The Norwegian kroner, here we see that's just buying less euros, so euro strength kicking in there. Swiss franc again, and if we look at sterling Swiss, Swiss still looking pretty strong. Last of all, we'll take a look at some markets. The S&P has had a good couple of weeks, and the market does seem to be rebounding, so that is quite good news. Of course, we've got to break this 2,100 level. The fact that we've come through this cloud is a bit worrying. We're now back above the cloud, but don't be surprised to see a seesaw where we come back and make lower lows. It's this fan pattern where the pattern is opening out, it's falling away more heavily than it is across the top here. So unless we break this 2,100 level, we still need to be very much on guard for stock markets. We see here we're just starting to break through on the daily. We're not through quite yet on the lagging line. It need 2 or 3 days above, but we can wander out into this territory unless markets fall away heavily now. 60-minute chart is bullish. We still have these downward targets hanging over us. A lot of support here, but downward pressure. So is the support going to win, or are the targets going to win? This will give us new upside potential, but again, it's breaking above these highs. This is classic Dow theory here, where we're seeing lower lows and lower highs. So here is a lower high. Unless we break above that and then lower lows, it's still a bearish pattern, even though we are seeing the recovery. So just be very wary with the markets. But at the moment, it is looking quite bullish on the short term. And I've been wandering back into the market a bit myself just on the basis of these targets, but very much ready to sell if things turn bad again. And that will show up in the 60-minute chart first. This is where we'll see the big sell-offs showing up first and giving us new downside target. But at the moment, we've got targets of 2, 3, 5% upside on the US stock market. If we look at the NASDAQ quickly, we see the NASDAQ didn't actually ever go below the cloud on the weekly. We're still very much below on the daily, and we do have no downside targets on the NASDAQ, which is quite interesting. So and 5% upside, so that's looking pretty good. If we look at European markets, we'll start with FTSE. FTSE is below on the weekly, very resource laden with oil and gas and resources. Has kept FTSE below on the weekly. Just wandering through on the daily, do have these downside targets hanging over us again. Just starting to look like we might break the downtrend. New upside target 14% upside, so that's quite positive on the 0.5% chart. So we are just starting to see that kicking through. If we look at the DAX is still bearish on the weekly, bearish on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute chart. A really mixed picture here. Downside target still on the 0.5% chart, which we didn't see on the FTSE chart. And then we've got this upside potential of 9.5%, quite bullish and up quite strongly this morning. If we take a look at Asian markets, last of all, we'll start with the Nikkei. Here we see the Nikkei is below the cloud on the weekly, below on the daily, and above on the 60-minute. So that's quite bullish, but of course we do have this bearish trend now and a 20% downside. 12% upside, but bearish trend again. So a little bit disconcerting there on the Nikkei. Of course, the market that caused a lot of problems towards the end of last year and the start of this year was China. China really interesting at the moment. We see here that we are just finding support in the cloud on the weekly chart. Of course, China's got a lot of work to do to stay above this cloud, and won't take too much for it to wander out. So China is still a little bit worrying, and here we see on the daily chart we're well below the cloud, above on the 60-minute, giving us upside potential of about 2%. But it's really this watching for new lows on China, giving 40-50% downside. So this could really unnerve markets still. We need to keep an eye on that. Last of all, we'll just take a quick look at the other Asian markets. So we look at Sensex. We've got more and more clients have updated in India. So the Sensex is bearish on the weekly, bearish on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute. Downside potential here, but there is support, so quite worrying. Only upside potential of about 2%, so it's not showing as much upside potential as we're seeing in the S&P. And then last of all, just take a quick look at the Aussie market. Aussie market bearish on the weekly, just turning bullish on the daily, bullish on the 60-minute. Downside targets here. 20% downside, but we are just seeing again a little bit of an improvement here, and quite on that 60-minute chart, quite a lot of upside potential on those thrusts there. 12%, 3% is the first stop, and then 12%. So the Aussie market could rebound from where it's been, but at the moment, of course, it will all depend on that S&P 500. This is the one to watch. Keep an eye on these charts. A couple of bad weeks puts us back below the cloud and the line, so we just need to be aware. We have had a good few strong weeks now, but we just need to be aware. And of course, we're heading into May, sell in May and go away, so we in the next several weeks that we have to fight that as well. But for the moment, what we're really looking for is a new high above 2100, 50 points to go. That's it for this week. Until next week, happy charting. See you then.